from the UK. She's a freelance journalist. We'd like to announce that President Donald Trump has lost the election. It has just come in that the projection for Pennsylvania has swung blue, and that it will be a blue state, giving Biden over the 270 votes, electoral votes that he needs to win the election. With this, Biden will take the House, or will take the White House as president. Harriet, I know we just were on a call earlier today for this, but now that it actually is official, what do you think about this, the announcement and the results?
Well, I don't know if you can hear me, but the streets are filled with cars honking, with people cheering. I don't know if you can hear out there. It's relief more than anything, the atmosphere in the air, but it's also some jubilation as well. Although I know we were saying earlier that there has been serious election fatigue, and of course we're already thinking about the problems that there may be with getting Trump out of the White House or getting Biden into a position of strength. But just at this moment, I think everyone is so delighted that it has been called one way or the other, that we can stop living with this uncertainty. We can all get some sleep and got Biden as president. We've got Kamala Harris as the first woman as vice president, which is in itself a huge thing to celebrate. So yeah, it's pretty exciting right here.
I think one of the biggest things is, I think, to remind people, the race still isn't over until we see President Trump actually give the concession speech, which I think a lot of people are now waiting for, or expecting in the next coming hours, if not day. Do you expect a concession speech to come out from President Trump?
Is he not? Was he not about to speak outside of some Four Seasons outhouse, something like that, something crazy? I expect to see a concession speech? No, I mean, he only tweeted not too long ago that he had won the election. I believe that he's golfing or something. So no, I don't really expect to see any kind of presidential concession. I don't expect to see any dignity. I do expect to see some posturing. I do expect to see some petty eye rolling. I definitely expect to see some baseless allegations thrown on the democratic process. I'm not sure if you can call that a concession speech, but I'm sure that we will be hearing from him soon.
So going down kicking and screaming is what I understand. Um, I, I guess one thing is, well, then will he actually step down? I think this is a fear that a lot of Democrats and a lot of people across the country fear, that we would actually have to go in and bring him out ourselves or with military. Unfortunately, do you think it would come to that, or do you think the president would actually transfer his powers over to the new Biden administration that'd be taking over?
Well, it's very difficult to say, because the one consistent thing about a Trump administration, about his presidency, has been the inconsistency and also the completely unprecedented breaking of norms. So every time that I have said, or that we have said, it could never happen, he could never do this, there are checks and balances, there are adults in the room, it could not happen, they will not let this happen, it has happened every single time for 4 years. So
Right.
although it seems to me inconceivable, everything about this presidency has seemed inconceivable. So it's so difficult to say. I hope that it does not come to the army dragging him kicking and screaming out of the White House like a toddler in a supermarket. But if it does, we will be watching.
I think that's a great a reference or metaphor to use, especially a child kicking, screaming out of the supermarket. I can see that very vividly. I think one big thing about this election, it all began and it ended in Pennsylvania for Vice President, or now President-elect Joe Biden. I think it was his roots that really got him this election. I think it started there and it obviously ended. And it came out for his win. I think honestly, I think his campaign group said yet in yesterday's speech that they'd expect to be winning with 306 electoral votes. I'm curious to see if that number still comes out. But as far as we know as of now, he won the election. One thing I want to ask you specifically about Joe Biden is, what kind of president do you think he'll be?
Well, I mean, CNN just made the very valid point that Biden ran his campaign on decency. There was very little mudslinging, there was very little stooping. It was incredibly dignified, and in the face of a worldwide pandemic, it was a very calm, very sensible. So I think that we can judge Biden as a president, well, insofar as we can at this stage. I think we can judge him by his presidential campaign, which was well organized, it was polite, and I think that manners have been missing from the White House for quite a long time. So it's very difficult to make any predictions because when it comes to Trumpism alive and well in the U.S. and a pandemic burning like wildfire across the country, it's difficult to know what will be needed of the president as well as what the president might do. But I think that we can say, because of Biden's time in the White House before, that he knows the way things are done and he plays by the rules, which will be something of a relief.
I think this brings up a really important question that I think President Biden has to decide on. There are some critics out there that say that he may not be able to do both, but that he has to make a choice, and that's between whether or not he'll focus now in his presidency to unite the Democratic Party moving forward, or if instead he'll work to bridge the gap between both the Democratic and the Republican parties. As we can see throughout the entire country, it's a split country in almost every single state with the Senate races. It's been 49, 48, 50, 49. There have been just so extremely close races. Just look at Georgia with few thousand vote difference. The country is divided. So I think the question that Joe Biden has to look at now moving forward is what is he going to do first? Is he going to work for uniting the Democratic community, or is it going to be uniting the country? And what do you think he should choose and why?
I think absolutely he has to start with uniting the country, because it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican or you voted for Kanye West. It doesn't matter, because you are still at the same risk of coronavirus. You are still living under the same economy, still with the same healthcare, still in the same United States of America. And if Biden does not manage to bridge that divide, to heal any of this division, to change this stark binary, then I just don't see what comes next 4 years from now. But I think that Americans are Americans. I hope that they are Americans before they are Republicans or they are Democrats. And I think that anyone can see that although Biden might not be the president they voted for, he will, I think, still have the best interests of all Americans at heart, because you can just see that in his demeanor. He has empathy. He really does care,
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that's what we will see.
I think one big fear that a lot of people are noticing or realize, at least with Joe Biden, is that he's 77 years old right now, but by the time that he takes over or, takes control of the White House, he'll be 78. He'll be the oldest living president in U.S. history to be in control of the White House. And so I guess the biggest fear is his health and whether or not he'll be able to still be a healthy and fit commander in chief. What does the UK or people from outside of the U.S. Think about Biden's age and his health going on forward in the presidency?
Well, of course, in the UK, we have a lot of extremely old politicians, and they're not quite so in the prime of their health either. So I don't think we would see it as an issue. 78 is not that old, not in this day and age. He seems to be in very good health. And if there were a situation where he wasn't able to perform his duties as president, he has a very experienced, very talented, very ready vice president. And as Biden has already served as vice president, he is best placed to teach Harris how to do that, to be the commander in chief in waiting. So I wouldn't say that we see that as an issue, perhaps if he was 88. But no, if anything, his age, his gravitas, his experience, I think will work in his favor. Of course, it's, just another old white man at the end of the day. But his health, no, I wouldn't see that as a concern, not at this stage anyway. And he's certainly taking care not to contract any extra issues. So that's obviously a benefit over Trump as well.
Right. I want to bring attention to a comment that we have in the chat, and this is from Sajid Ali on Twitter. And he says, what are the hopes from Biden regarding a global perspective? What do you think about that?
I think from the UK's perspective, it will be really nice not to wake up in the morning and have to immediately check to see if the President of the United States of America has instigated World War III on Twitter. That will be nice. I think what we can hope for is peace, stability, progress on global issues, a strong stance on China, a path forward for climate change, progressive values of empathy and care and equality. I think that's what we can hope for. But I think what we expect is just a little bit of peace from the relentlessness of the last few years of a Trump presidency. Because for the rest of the world, as onlookers, we have been dragged into America's civil war. We have been not just witness to the divisions and to the upheaval of the Trump administration, but we have been active victims of it all across the world. Everything that the president tweeted, we had to cover, we had to read, we had to listen. Every single speech, every single near miss with the missiles. It's going to be nice to have a bit of peace.
One big thing that I think that for President or I'm sorry, President-elect Joe Biden. Now we have to get used to calling him President-elect. He's going to be the 46th president of the United States, and I think people have to remember that there's still 74 more days until he will take control of the White House. What damage could President Trump do or try to do within these last 74 days of him owning the House?
I don't want this to come back to haunt me, but what damage could he do that he hasn't already done? Short of setting the White House on fire, he's already metaphorically set the office on fire. What's left? I mean, what more could he possibly do? Don't answer that. I don't want to find out. We don't want to find out. It's obviously it's very worrying. It's very extremely concerning that he might be whipping up more violence, more protests, more contestations of the democratic process. That's extremely worrying, and it's something that we take very seriously. But in terms of the damage that he could do, what has he not done already? Short of sewing fish into the curtains of the Oval Office, what's left?
I think I agree with you. I think maybe not talking about it and hoping that it doesn't get any worse than what possibly has already happened already. I think one big thing, looking at Joe Biden, I know during the debates, many moderators asked Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, if you get elected, would you stack the Supreme Court? And that was a question that they continuously avoided and jumped around. And especially with the most recent appointment into the Supreme Court from Donald Trump, and now being in the favor of the Republican side, even more so after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What do we expect from Joe Biden? Will they actually stack the Supreme Court or not? What do you think?
It's very difficult to say, but I expect caution from Joe Biden. This campaign, these results, while this is a big win, it's obviously still yet to be all the votes counted, but we have seen that Trumpism is alive and well, that there are millions of Trump voters, some of them extremely vocal, some of them extremely violent. So I think a sensible way forward would be to proceed with caution. I don't know what that will mean for Biden, and I certainly don't know what that will mean for Kamala Harris because she's slightly more the unknown. But I think that, and this is complete conjecture, just from the other side of the Atlantic, just looking from here, it seems to me that a lot of Republicans are ready for the end of Trump. They are, in fact, relieved that at least now things can simmer down slightly. There will be processes, there will be norms, there will be respect, there will be, hopefully, progress made on issues that affect, as we said, people from all across the political spectrum, because the pandemic is non-partisan. It cannot be dealt with in a partisan way, and the situation in the US with hundreds of thousands of people are dying. There needs to be a bridge between the Republicans and the Democrats. There needs to be movement forward on the coronavirus, and that needs to be his first port of call.
You know, that's a great segue into this next question. Dealing with COVID and the pandemic, Biden has a lot that he's going to have to deal with, especially with a big portion of the country influenced by President Donald Trump believing that the COVID isn't a big deal and it shouldn't be taken as seriously as it needed. And I think especially that got flared after President Trump did contract COVID, recovered, and, you know, was saying it wasn't really that big of a deal after he received so much government funded top of the line healthcare and support. I think, and even these the vaccinations that he got for it as well. I think that regular American people don't have access to as of yet. I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is for President-elect Joe Biden, he has a lot to work with, or a lot to work towards. But how should he get a country that is also divided not only on politics, but also on COVID, when it isn't a partisan issue at all? It is just a survival issue. How is he supposed to get through to the rest of the American people that this is something they need to take seriously? And as president, what can he do?
Well, he can stop calling it the Chinese virus. Obviously, that's not helpful from Trump. Biden could learn the lessons, I think, from Trump's approach, which was hiding the seriousness of it from the American people, undermining his scientists, joking about drinking bleach, and all manner of craziness. Biden's best foot forward would be consistency in messaging, clarity, and also just being present. Being present, is so important, and that's something that we've definitely found over on our side of the Atlantic, where quite often our prime minister has been visibly absent from the population. We are in a crisis. People do need to look to a leader, and that means Biden showing up. It means showing up on TV, on the radio, using social media, consistent messaging, and also empathy. That's something that has been really very noticeably missing from Trump and his entire administration during this time. All these deaths, these hundreds of thousands of probably avoidable deaths, actually, in a lot of cases, and there has been not one shred of humanity, not one apology, not one "we're all in this together," not one "I will help you, I will lead you, I will listen to you, I will take care of you." This is the supposed father of the nation, so I think that Biden just needs to let his humanity shine through, because just as many Republicans will be dying as Democrats, and he needs to find some way for those people to look up to him and to look to him for guidance, as well as his own party.
Keeping on the topic of the parties itself, specifically looking at the Republican Party, and now with this huge upset for them, is this something that they'll be able to accept, or what's the healing, accepting process going to be like for the majority of the Republican Party?
It's extremely difficult to say. I mean, it comes down, I think, to basic education for children, which is admitting when you were wrong, saying that you're sorry, asking for forgiveness. These are basic lessons that we are all taught as children, and they seem to have been largely forgotten by many grown-up politicians that should really know better. So it's really hard to say what's going to happen next. I hope that there will be people left in the Republican Party, despite the fact that they have stayed in all the way through, despite the fact that they have been actively complicit in Trump's more deranged moments by staying by his side and by parroting it a lot of the time. I hope that there will be some dignity left in these politicians, that there will be some sense of honor, of the weight of your state and the weight of your office. I hope so. I could be really naive in saying that, but I hope not.
I think one of the biggest things is that President-elect Joe Biden, even just in the last few days, has said that with confidence he believes that his team would win, and with confidence they did win. But also to not gloat when they would win, to tell all the other Democrats that this is a win for America, not for just Democrats themselves. And that, again, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. Your friends, your family, everyone is still an American. It's not, and I think he's already trying to take the steps to bridge this divide between the country through this jargon, through this, through the speech that he gave. And I think these are the right steps he needs to take. But I think it'll be easier for him to reach and connect with the Democratic Party than it will be with the Republican side. So I think he has a lot of work that he needs to do there. But moving forward, though, I think it'll be hard for the Republican Party to let go of this. And I think with all of the branding and all of the just influence that President Trump has had on the American people in general, this is going to be a lot of steps forward in the right direction, but they'll be slow and hard steps to take. That I think Joe Biden will have to make. One thing I think looking forward, though, is the efforts that have been made throughout the country. I know specifically in Georgia, Stacey Abrams, I want to put some attention on this, made over 800,000 people who were not registered to vote and gave them the opportunity to vote by helping them register and reaching out to people. And I think she was one of the big influences and that allowed Georgia to get to how close it was in this election. And there have been other people similar to Stacey Abrams across the country, but I just really want to put some influence on that. But I think because of these people who have been supporting not even just the Democratic Party, but supporting the country overall, I feel like there is hope that the country can still unite and still move forward into, the future. Again, working against solving the pandemic, decreasing the numbers, and then from there, actually working on the issues with climate change and everything else. Currently, I just got some information that there are already celebrations going across the country, as you could expect. People meeting in large groups, which hopefully I don't think they're being social distanced, but I can see some masks and some of the stuff I saw on CNN just a moment ago. But I think the biggest thing, though, is just staying safe and staying cautious. But one thing, Harriet, is this I think this is a moment that people should take a second, take a deep breath. This has been a week of just intense tension that's been going throughout both sides of the Republican and the Democratic aisle. Do you think it's fine that people just take a breath of fresh air and just sit back and go, whew,
Yes, absolutely. As you said, we've got such a mountain to climb here to try and bridge the divide, to try and heal the divisions and the tension, and just the aggression and the fury and the fear of the last 4 years has been so pervasive across society, across the world. A friend of mine tweeted just not too long ago that she feels as though a weight that has been on her chest for 4 years has been lifted. Now, this is someone that does not live in the US, is not, directly affected by the decisions of the White House. But yes, I think it's so important in a socially distanced, COVID-friendly way to just take a moment, everyone, Republican, Democrat, left-wing, right-wing, every wing, just take a moment and appreciate the positives here. Record voter turnout. That's incredible. We haven't spoken about that enough, and it's absolutely incredible. The work done by people like Stacey Abrams to help the disenfranchised, to get people involved in democracy, in elections. I mean, that is so important. And no matter where you are on the political spectrum, the fact that we've got all of these young people and ex-felons and people from all sorts of diverse communities voting for the first time, it's incredible. Let's all just take a moment, just a moment before the work begins, before the tension, before the takes and the analysis and the stress and the response. Just take a moment and think, wow, what have we just watched? It's the most incredible thing. It's one of the most incredible elections I've ever seen. You know,
Mhm.
it's history. Yes, take a moment to breathe in history.
It's history in the making. That's exactly what it is. Another thing I want to take a second and look at is just kind of with now the main presidential election almost under wraps. Um, Everyone's attention is now turning towards the Senate with the extreme close race that's going on in Georgia. That the running election will happen on January 5th, where the two different Senate elections will take place. This will pretty much identify whether or not the Republicans will hold the majority in the Senate, or if it will be a split Senate. If it's split, that means that President-elect Joe Biden will not be a lame duck president. But if it is Republican controlled, then he will be a lame duck president. If he ends up becoming a lame duck president, how do you think the 4 years of his presidency will go? Do you think he'll be able to pass anything, or will there be a lot of heavy negotiations and on the Republican side that'll need to be made?
Well, I'm hardly an expert, but Biden has significant experience in the Senate, in the White House, and in US politics in general. So if anybody knows what he's doing, it is Biden. In the years that he has spent in service to his country, he must have maintained and cultivated hundreds of relationships and goodwill and just general camaraderie and politeness amongst anything else. So even if it is, as you say, a so-called lame duck presidency, I don't necessarily believe that Biden will have his wings clipped. He knows how things work in DC. He knows how things work in the White House. And there are things that need to be done for the good of the country that, were Republicans to block, would directly negatively impact their own supporters. So it doesn't seem to me to be conducive to anyone's politics. And I know that it's supposed to be people before politics. Unfortunately, it never is. But it would be not very self-serving of the Republicans to block legislation that Biden tries to put through to help the entire country fight what is an unprecedented pandemic and a disaster. There wouldn't be any point.
Right. I want to also bring some attention to some of the comments we have. We have a few people that have claim that this election is fake and that this is a backed election. And I think, we'll be seeing a lot of this, as the next few days play out with the recounts that happen. And I think, especially in Georgia, we'll be seeing how close the race is. Do you think any of these, when they recount the votes, it could turn another way, or, something else might happen? Do you think there's going to be a surprise once these recounts do happen?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think that the people who have called this election as a done deal know what they're talking about. They have data analytics, the likes of which us at home have no access to. So no, I don't anticipate there being any major surprises. I am kind of looking at these comments, quite a lot of concern. There's some threats, some claims of a fake election, not my president. Half the people won't believe it. It's a fake election. And this is all direct consequence of the erosion of truth and the complete flagrant disregard for truth that has gone on in the Trump presidency. So it is action consequences, unfortunately, and I do not anticipate Biden having an easy time. I do not anticipate this going down without a fight, without any kind of unrest, unfortunately. But I think that a lot of people will see that Biden actually has the better way forward through this pandemic than Trump. And it doesn't matter what you think of the election, and it doesn't matter what you think of either president. What matters is, which man do you trust more to save your family's life? And I think for many people that will not be a difficult question. I hope, anyway.
No, that completely makes sense, and I think, like what we just said earlier, there will be a lot of time that needs to be taken into repairing the relationships between both, the Democratic and the Republican side. But I think President-elect Joe Biden has said many times throughout his entire campaign that he has been able to work with the Republican side. He has been able to cross the aisle and pass bills and pass laws that have been bipartisan. And I think that was one of the big selling points of his entire election, was that he could connect the Republican and Democratic side. And I think we'll be seeing now in the first few years whether or not he can actually do that and follow through with what he said. And I'm very interested in seeing that. I'm really interested in seeing what happens in the Senate and seeing who the next speaker will be, who will be in charge, and whether or not this will be a lame duck presidency for Joe Biden. But I think I want to thank you so much for coming on air with me today, Harriet, especially after we just had a broadcast earlier today and the results were just announced not even just a few hours later after that. Did you have anything else you wanted to say to the masses?
Yes, I think that I wanted to add that although, of course, there are deep divisions to be healed and there will be unrest, I think that what a lot of commentators are missing is the fact that a lot of the division of the last 4 years, a lot of the unrest, a lot of the fear and horror and misery and just general aggression has been directly whipped up by Donald Trump in the White House, by his laws, by his disregard for norms, by his Twitter feed, by his divisive language. It's so much directly from him that I do hope, anyway, that by removing him from our airwaves a little bit, by slightly reducing his platform as former president rather than current president and his hands off the nuclear codes, I do hope that some semblance of, I don't want to say normality, but at least calm and reasoning will come back, no matter what your political beliefs are, no matter who you think should be president or who you think should be in the Senate. I do hope that everybody going forward can behave like adults.
Beautifully said. And I think, just as a reminder, the election is still technically going on until we receive the concession speech by Donald Trump. And if we don't receive one, then this will just continue to be prolonged as the recounts go through and as we wait for that said concession. But as of now, there's T minus 74 days until President-elect Joe Biden will be taking office. And we will be moving forward from there onto fixing the nation with the COVID, and going back into hopefully repairing our international relations, and our own internal issues as well within the nation. Thank you everyone for attending and viewing our broadcast. This is a broadcast on HAPS, the network of now. This is again my special guest, Harriet Marston, who is from the UK for the International Viewpoint of Europe. And again, thank you so much for attending. And as we've said, President-elect Joe Biden has won Pennsylvania and is so far will be the next president of the United States.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you.